you're broke, and someone just told you to think positive about it. So you plaster a smile on your face, repeat your affirmations in the mirror, and pretend the anxiety isn't crushing your chest every time you check your bank account. But here's the brutal truth most spiritual teachers won't tell you: that fake happiness is making you poorer. Every forced smile, every desperate affirmation, every time you try to convince yourself you're abundant, while your stomach knots at the sight of another bill, you're not manifesting wealth, you're manifesting resistance. The Bible never said smile until money appears. It said something far more radical, far more uncomfortable. Be still and know that I am God. Not hope, not wish, not try really hard to believe. No. There's a chasm between those words, and most people are falling into it right now. Neville Goddard spent decades teaching one unshakable truth: your imagination is God. Not your emotions, not your optimism, your capacity to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled with such naturalness that doubt cannot exist in the same space. Today, you're going to learn why positive thinking keeps you trapped in lack, and what you must do instead to claim the wealth that already belongs to you in consciousness. Let's start with the lie you've been sold. Modern positive thinking culture has twisted ancient spiritual law into something unrecognizable. It tells you to deny reality, to gaslight yourself into fake happiness, to perform joy while your world crumbles. This is not what the mystics taught. This is not what Neville Goddard revealed. This is toxic positivity dressed up as manifestation, and it's creating more poverty than it cures. Here's what actually happens when you force positive thoughts while living in lack. Your subconscious mind, which Neville called your true creative power, doesn't hear your words. It reads your state. When you say, "I am wealthy," while feeling desperate, your consciousness registers desperation. When you affirm abundance while your body tenses with fear at every expense, you're impressing fear into the creative medium of imagination. The affirmation becomes a reminder of what you don't have. Every repetition deepens the wound. Neville Goddard taught that consciousness is the only reality. Your outer world is simply consciousness pushed out, crystallized into form. If your consciousness is saturated with the feeling of trying to get something, you will perpetually experience the state of trying. Not having, trying. The universe doesn't reward effort. It reflects assumption. Consider this distinction carefully. Hope says, maybe one day I'll have money. Knowing says money is already mine in consciousness, and the physical must conform. Hope keeps you in a state of separation from your desire. It positions wealth as something outside of you, something you must chase, earn, or attract. Knowing collapses the distance entirely. It assumes the end. It dwells in the state of already being the person who has it. The psychology of lack is devastatingly simple. You are always surprised by money because you have not naturalized wealth in your imagination. When an unexpected check arrives, you feel shock, gratitude, relief. These emotions betray your true state. A king is not surprised by his crown. A wealthy person is not shocked by income. They expect it. They assume it. It is natural to their consciousness. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows." Your attention follows the familiar. If poverty is familiar, you will unconsciously recreate it, no matter how many vision boards you make. And here's the most dangerous trap: euphoria. When you finally manifest a small amount of money and you explode with excitement, celebrate excessively. Post about it online with shocked emojis. You are telling your subconscious that this event is abnormal, rare, special, not your natural state. Euphoria is a signal of poverty. Calm acknowledgement is a signal of wealth. The rich do not dance when money arrives. They expect it. They planned for it. It is ordinary. This is the gap between desire and belief that bankrupts most manifestors. You desire wealth intensely, but you do not believe it is natural to you. You do not believe you are the type of person who simply has money. So you perform positivity to bridge that gap, and the performance itself widens it. Neville warned against this repeatedly. You cannot trick consciousness. You can only impress it with states you genuinely occupy. Neville Goddard once told the story of a woman who came to him desperate for money. She had tried everything: affirmations, visualizations, gratitude journals. Nothing worked. He asked her a simple question. When you imagine having money, what do you feel? She admitted she felt relief, temporary safety, a brief escape from fear. And there was the problem. Her imaginal act was still rooted in lack. She wasn't assuming wealth. She was assuming temporary rescue from poverty. Neville instructed her differently. He told her to imagine not the moment money arrived, but the moment weeks later when having money was so normal, she barely thought about it. Imagine opening your wallet and seeing bills without any emotional charge. Imagine paying rent and feeling nothing. No relief, no gratitude, no surprise. Just calm normalcy. This is the state of the wealthy. Money is boring to them. The woman resisted. She wanted to feel happy about money. She wanted the high of manifestation. Neville pressed deeper. Happiness about money proves you are not accustomed to it. A queen does not throw a party every time she enters her palace. She lives there. It is her address. You must make wealth your inner address, your permanent residence in consciousness, before it can manifest in your outer world. This teaching comes directly from his masterwork, The Power of Awareness. Neville wrote, "The world is yourself pushed out. Ask yourself what you want, and then give it to yourself. Do not question how it will come about. Just go your way, knowing that the evidence of what you have done must appear, and it will. The how is not your concern. The state is everything." He taught that imagination creates reality not through force, not through repetition, but through assumption. Assumption is living from the end. It is occupying the consciousness of the person who already has the thing, not the person trying to get it, not the person hoping for it, the person who has normalized it so deeply that they cannot conceive of an alternative. Neville often referenced the biblical story of Jesus walking on water. He said the miracle was not defying physics. The miracle was Jesus assuming a state where walking on water was natural. He did not hope the water would hold him. He did not try really hard to believe. He knew. And in that knowing, the physical world had no choice but to conform. This is the law. Consciousness precedes manifestation. State determines experience. Another story Neville shared involved a man struggling with debt. The man would look at his bills and panic. His heart would race. His breathing would shallow. Every fiber of his being screamed poverty. Neville told him, "You must learn to look at those bills without crying. Not by forcing positive thoughts, by changing your inner state so completely that the bills no longer have power over you." The man practiced daily. He would hold his bills, breathe deeply, and assume the feeling of someone for whom debt was temporary and manageable. Not denied, not feared. Neutralized. Within months, unexpected income arrived. The debt dissolved. But the real miracle was internal. He had claimed authority over his own consciousness. This is what most people miss. They want the money without the consciousness shift. They want the castle without becoming the king. Neville said it plainly. You must go to the end. Claim your desire in imagination first. Live from that end until it hardens into fact. The law of assumption is not a technique. It is a law as fixed as gravity. Neville Goddard dedicated his entire life to teaching one principle. Assumptions harden into facts. Whatever you assume to be true about yourself, others, and the world will crystallize into your lived experience. Not because the universe is granting wishes, because consciousness is the only reality, and the outer world is simply its reflection. Most people live from lack. They assume scarcity. They assume they must work harder, sacrifice more, prove themselves worthy before abundance arrives. These assumptions create a life of struggle because the law is neutral. It does not judge your assumptions. It simply materializes them. If you assume life is hard, you will experience hardness. If you assume money is scarce, you will experience scarcity. If you assume you are the type of person who struggles financially, struggle will follow you like a shadow. Neville taught that to change your world, you must first change your conception of yourself. This is not self-help platitude. This is metaphysical surgery. You must sever your identity from the person who lacks and graft it onto the person who has. Not someday. Now. In imagination, which is the only place creation occurs. Here is the core practice Neville prescribed. Enter into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not the hoping, not the wanting, the fulfilled. This means you must construct an imaginal scene that implies your desire is already done. If you want wealth, do not imagine receiving a check. That scene implies you don't have it yet. Imagine something that could only happen if you already had wealth. Imagine a friend congratulating you on your financial success. Imagine yourself calmly reviewing investment statements. Imagine the naturalness of having money in every decision you make. Then, loop that scene in your mind with feeling. Neville called this making it natural. You must repeat the imaginal act until it feels more real than your current circumstances, until your consciousness accepts it as fact. This is not fantasy. This is impressing your subconscious mind, which is the builder of your world. Your subconscious does not argue. It does not judge. It accepts what you repeatedly impress upon it and sets forces in motion to materialize that impression. But here is where most people fail. They perform the imaginal act and then spend the rest of their day contradicting it. They visualize wealth for 10 minutes, then worry about bills for 10 hours. They assume abundance in meditation, then assume lack in conversation. Neville warned that you cannot serve two states. You cannot assume wealth and poverty simultaneously. One must dominate, and whichever state you occupy most frequently, most naturally, will win. This is why he emphasized the mental diet. Guard your thoughts as you would guard your physical diet. Do not entertain assumptions that contradict your desire. If a thought of lack arises, do not fight it. Simply redirect. Return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Return to the end. Neville said, an assumption, though false, if persisted in will harden into fact. This is both warning and promise. Persist in lack, and you materialize poverty. Persist in fulfillment, and you materialize abundance. The biblical command, "Be still and know that I am God," is not poetic mysticism. It is tactical instruction. Be still means cease the mental chatter. Stop the frantic hoping, wishing, begging. Know means assume with such certainty that doubt is impossible. I am God means recognize that your consciousness, your I am, is the creative power. Not something outside of you, not a deity you must petition. The divine power is within you, and it responds to your assumptions. Joseph Murphy, a student of the same metaphysical tradition, reinforced this principle. He taught that the subconscious mind is amenable to suggestion. It does not reason independently. It accepts what the conscious mind impresses upon it. If you repeatedly impress poverty, it will create poverty. If you repeatedly impress wealth, it will create wealth. The law is mechanical. Consciousness is cause. The world is effect. Neville also spoke extensively about the Sabbath, which he interpreted as the psychological rest that follows assumption. Once you have assumed your desire fulfilled in imagination, you must rest. You must stop striving. The work is done in consciousness. The physical manifestation will follow in its own time. Doubt is the only thing that can delay or prevent it. Rest in the certainty of your assumption, and let the law do its work. Let's bring this ancient law into your immediate financial reality. You have bills, you have debts, you have desires for money that feel impossible from where you stand. How do you apply Neville's teaching without denying your current circumstances or falling into toxic positivity? First, understand the difference between acknowledging facts and accepting permanence. Your bank account shows a certain number. That is a fact. But facts are not truth in the metaphysical sense. Facts are past creations, the result of previous states of consciousness. Truth is what you assume now. You can acknowledge the current fact while refusing to give it power over your future. Look at your debt without emotion. See it as temporary data, not identity. Neville taught the technique of neutralizing polarity. Money is neither good nor evil. It is energy. When you assign desperate importance to it, you create resistance. When you vilify it, you repel it. When you worship it, you position yourself beneath it. The king's mindset treats money as ordinary, useful, expected, not rare, not precious, not anxiety-inducing, just normal. William Blake, the mystic poet Neville often quoted, wrote about the marriage of heaven and hell. He taught that all contraries are necessary to existence: poverty and wealth, desire and fulfillment. The tension between them is creative, but Blake also warned against remaining in that tension. You must resolve it in imagination. You must marry the desire with the assumption of its fulfillment. Only then does creation occur. In practical terms, this means when you look at your finances, you practice divine neutrality. You do not panic. You do not force happiness. You simply observe and then redirect your consciousness to the state of wealth. You might say inwardly, "This is temporary. My true state is abundance. Consciousness is shifting. The outer must follow." This is not affirmation in the desperate sense. This is declaration from authority. Here is a daily practice Neville would approve. Each morning, before checking your bank account or reading emails or engaging with the world, sit quietly and assume the feeling of financial freedom. Not by imagining large numbers, by assuming the inner state of someone who never worries about money. Feel the calm. Feel the security. Feel the naturalness of always having enough and more. Impress this state deeply. Then go about your day from that state, not toward it. When financial fear arises during the day, and it will, do not suppress it. Acknowledge it briefly, then return to your assumption. You are training consciousness. You are making wealth familiar. Over time, the fear will lose its grip because your dominant state will be abundance. Neville also taught about revision. If you have a negative financial interaction, a bill that triggers panic, a rejection that wounds, revise it in imagination. Replay the scene as you wish it had happened. Feel the revised version. This is not denial. This is impressing a new assumption over the old reaction. The subconscious does not distinguish between physical and imaginal experience. Revise enough, and your future interactions will conform to the revised state. Another supporting authority, Abdullah, Neville's teacher, taught him a critical lesson. When Neville wanted to travel to Barbados but had no money, Abdullah told him, "You are in Barbados." He did not say you will be. He said you are. This is the assumption of the end. Neville protested. Abdullah closed the door in his face. Neville was forced to live from the end in imagination. Within weeks, the money and circumstances appeared. The physical world reorganized around his assumption. Apply this to your finances. You are wealthy. Not you will be. You are. In consciousness, where all creation begins, you have claimed wealth. Now your job is to remain faithful to that assumption despite physical evidence to the contrary. Neville called this walking by faith, not by sight. Faith is not hope. Faith is assumption persisted in. If you have a business or career, assume the state of success in that area. Do not imagine customers or promotions. Assume you are already the person who has achieved the level you desire. Feel what that person feels. Think what that person thinks. Make decisions from that state. The opportunities, connections, and resources will appear because consciousness is always externalizing itself. One final modern application. Social media and comparison culture destroy manifestation. When you scroll and see others with wealth, and you feel envy or inadequacy, you are assuming separation from abundance. You are affirming that wealth belongs to them, not you. Neville would tell you to use that moment differently. When you see wealth, assume it is a reflection of the wealth available to you. Assume their success proves the law works, and you are next. This shifts you from lack to expectation. Let's crystallize the metaphysical resolution. Positive thinking keeps you poor because it is a strategy of lack pretending to be abundance. It tries to get somewhere instead of being there. Neville Goddard revealed that manifestation is not about attraction. It is about assumption. You do not attract what you want. You become it in consciousness, and the physical world reflects that becoming. The Bible, the Kabbalah, William Blake, Joseph Murphy, and Abdullah all point to the same truth. Consciousness is the only reality, and assumptions harden into facts. The shift from poverty to wealth is not external. It is a shift in state. You stop hoping for money and start knowing you have it. You stop being surprised by abundance and start expecting it. You stop celebrating income like a miracle and start treating it like your natural right. This is not arrogance. This is alignment with the law. The king does not doubt his throne. The wealthy do not question their wealth. They occupy that consciousness so deeply that the outer world has no choice but to conform. You have been given the key. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live from the end. Neutralize the emotional charge around money. Revise past failures. Guard your mental diet. Rest in the certainty of your assumption. These are not suggestions. These are the mechanics of creation. Neville spent decades proving them. Thousands have applied them successfully. Now it is your turn. But this knowledge is worthless if you treat it like information instead of initiation. You must apply it daily. You must make it your dominant state. You cannot dabble in assumption while living in doubt and expect results. Commit to the law or remain in lack. The choice is always yours. If this teaching has shifted something in you, if you feel the pull toward a new state of consciousness, then you belong in this community. Subscribe to the Goddard Code. Join others who are done with surface-level manifestation and ready for the deep metaphysical work that actually transforms reality. Every video on this channel is designed to take you further into the mysteries Neville revealed. This is not entertainment. This is your spiritual education in the science of imagination. Let me leave you with Neville's own words, the foundation upon which everything else is built. Assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and observe the route that your attention follows. You are already that which you seek. You need only claim it in consciousness, and the world will hand it to you in physical form. Now go, be still, and know